would you ever see then, in terms of the church and Republicans, evangelicals who identify as Republicans, do you ever think there would be a split? I've read some things you've written about the terms used was a crack up in terms of the Republicans perhaps separating or church evangelical types, perhaps leaving him. Do you think there's a line that he could cross where people would then think, right, that's enough, there's going to be a separation here?
No. Categorical. I really don't think so. I mean, we media headlines keep talking about his support dropping, and then when you look at his approval rating, it's at the lower end maybe of where it has been in his presidency, but it's still at about 40%, which is where it started, and it hasn't changed. I think in the 2020 election, he's going to get 3/4 of the evangelical vote or more. So he's going to get really about the same proportion of evangelicals that he got in 2016. I really don't think anything's going to change, but I think there's a couple things to kind of work through here. And one of them is just the degree of threat that evangelicals are feeling at this point. And you can see that especially from the recent ruling from the Supreme Court that outlawed discrimination against LGBT Americans.
Yes, and trans Americans as well, wasn't it? That's
right. This was not something that they expected to be written by a Trump justice appointee. And so it was, frankly, shocking to me as well. I did not expect that.
Was that Gorsuch that wrote the majority opinion on that, or which one?
That's correct. Yeah. So he was pitched as someone that evangelicals would be really proud of, that he was going to take a stand against the encroachment of the LGBT special agenda, as they would call it. But so they had a major setback in that regard, and I think they see that as a real threat. And they were saying things like, well, I guess religious freedom is over in America. That's the degree of threat that they're feeling at this point, that they're really under pressure, that they're not going to be able to express their views and, frankly, continue to discriminate against LGBT Americans.
I can understand some of to me, freedom of speech is a really important issue, but not when it, not from the perspective, I don't want freedom of speech when it only helps me and doesn't help anyone else. So, I can understand how some people might feel like they're sort of, these clauses are sinking in or whatever, but then also there might be things that perhaps the evangelical agenda might seek to do that would limit the expression of others, so I don't like when there's this, it's fine when it helps me, but not when it helps other, communities and other people.
It's a thorny question, to be sure. Most Americans do support religious freedom. They want to see people have conscience rights.
Yes.
And they also don't want to see people be discriminated against. In fact, most Americans actually thought that there were protections for LGBT Americans in place. So they didn't know that it wasn't happening in many states. But that's only one small part of it. There are many folks, including the president, who have said in public that if Democrats are elected, they're going to persecute Christians, that they're going to ban the Bible. They're going to take away your right to run for office, to speak however you want. I mean, they're really going to strip you for your First Amendment rights. And there's a lot of Americans that actually believe this to be true. And so once you start from that kind of place, then you can justify all kinds of things. It doesn't matter what imperfect a vessel you choose. You need to choose whatever weapon is in front of you. And
the end justifies the means. Yeah.
If it's a bully like Trump appears to be, so much the better, because at least he's on your side and fighting for your cause. And so that kind of brings us back to him holding the Bible out next to the church right outside of the White House. Presidents have frequently used biblical imagery in times of crisis, but they use it in entirely different ways than this president has. They reach out and they use very general terms, inclusive terms, comforting terms, that God is in control and he's going to bring us together and bring us.
It was a strange gesture for sure.
It's holding up a sword. I mean, this is like, I'm here. I'm still here with this Bible. I'm going to protect you against the invading hordes.